Welcome back to the Altar Power Session. My name is Kim O'Neill, and it's my honor to bring you our second video series, Inspired by Crisis, where we'll be hearing from some of Altar Global and Transformation TV's worldwide experts on how to navigate change and uncertainty in times of crisis. Today, we're connecting with Jessica Keats. Welcome, Jessica.
Hi, it's great to be back.
Absolutely. It's great to have you back. So, Jessica, my first question for you is, as an international healer who consults with individuals and businesses to help them increase and maximize their potential, what are your initial thoughts on navigating change and uncertainty in times of crisis?
I think that my initial thoughts have to be it's the same as navigating change and uncertainty without crisis, right?
Love
The
that.
only extra level is that you have to catch yourself in your reaction to the crisis. And it's okay to be reacting, but at some point we have to say, "Oh, wait a second. I'm responding to this crisis. Let's take a step back and analyze the response," right? And then we look at, oh, this is me. This is how I react to change and uncertainty at a heightened level.
I love that you're really neutralizing it and bringing it back to, this is how you would navigate change in any form in your life. And so what that really brings up is well, then what are those practices that we have in place to really support us in navigating any change, whether it be on a smaller scale or a larger scale? So what comes to mind for you when you think about navigating change in everyday times?
In everyday times, it's recognizing that change is coming. So even when it's just normal, every day, we don't always see it, but we start to have our reaction to it, right? So some
Mhm.
of the ways that we react to change is by either starting to move very fast, so starting to make decisions very fast, or like almost running as though we're maybe thinking we're running towards it, but we're actually kind of like running away from it,
Okay.
which is interesting. Or we're slowing down, right? We're watching a lot more Netflix. We're like, I'm going to eat a cake. Like there's a slowdown. There's an avoidance of it. And I had a really interesting conversation with a group about a week ago, actually Easter weekend, and we were talking about, as kids, um, how did we react to the unknown? And in terms of it was interesting what came up was each of us had thought, what if someone breaks into our house? What would we do? Right? Like if someone broke in at night and one person in the family was like, oh, you know what? I would fight, right? I grabbed the nearest, closest thing and I'd fight. And
Okay.
I was like, oh, you know what? I always wanted to play dead. Like that was like my go-to, right? And so one other person was like, oh, you know what? I would fight and then at the first chance run. Right. And I was sitting there in this conversation. I was like, this is how we deal with it. Right. This is exactly what we're still doing to this day. When uncertainty comes, we are behaving this way. So first of all, it's identifying that there's some sort of unknown happening. There's some sort of gap. And then what is our behavior towards it? And then can we find a way to be more comfortable with the unknown,
It
right? And
really
that's a whole structure there.
It is a structure. It really brings up that phrase, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Hmm.
And so it's like, what is your process on that smaller scale? And if you're not quite aware, then that can be a challenge in itself. Just knowing, well, how do I respond to things on an everyday level? I heard what you were saying about, I would fight or I would play dead. I mean, that's that whole fight or flight
Yeah.
and knowing your own patterns. And so what would you say for a person who's not really, maybe aware of how they even respond to change, at just the present everyday level?
Yeah, from unawareness, it's actually being taking a conscious effort to become aware, right? So looking at the changes that are coming up, maybe it's a change in job, or it's a move to a different place, or um, it's even a change in restaurant menu can even trigger something like that, right? Or like walking into a place where you can't get the same seat that you wanted, or even very like I don't know about you, but like sometimes when I go into a regular like public bathroom, I always want the same stall, right?
Yeah.
Like, but what
Yep.
what happens when I don't get that stall, right?
Right.
So there's all these opportunities to look at when we're actually walking into the unknown, and what is our response to it. And I think when we have an open dialogue with the people that we're surrounded by, like we can easily start to see what our behavior patterns are in order to then be able to identify them and say, oh, a change must be coming because I'm doing X, right?
Yep.
And then, therefore, what is the change that's coming? And then, what behaviors could I put in place to help this change happen faster, given that I know part of me is doing the play dead thing? So, part of me is definitely watching the love stories on Netflix, whatever, however I'm playing dead. Right? And that's okay too. And I do have to embrace the change at the same time.
And it really brings into question, well, why is this our go-to response? So if it's playing dead, is it to be in that space of denial or avoidance, or is it to be in a space of ease and flow? And even having an awareness even at that level of
Yeah.
noticing what your inner motive is, because when there is so much going on around, it could be very unsettling. And so what can we do to bring it within us, right, to have that sense of calm from the inside out if everything out here is kind of crazy? This is also bringing into this sense of leadership on a self leadership scale. How you know when there's change and chaos going on in the world at a global scale, well, then what does that mean for my own self leadership, just on an individual scale? What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's really important, right? Because it's super easy to get caught into the stream of consciousness of everyone. And the larger stream of consciousness when there's a crisis or when there's something happening globally is a fear. A fear, rises. And
Right.
when you get caught in that stream, you can find yourself going into some really interesting places as you're getting swept away with it, right? So this self leadership of being able to catch yourself or being able to keep an eye on yourself and like, oh, okay, you're currently responding this way because there's a fear. And it can look, as extreme as panic attacks, or it can look even as small as, uh-oh, there's a bunch of unknown, we should, right? Like we
Yes.
should act this way. Even I found myself at that tail end being like, oh, we should keep governance the same at this nonprofit that I work at, right? We should keep governance stable and the same, and to provide stability. And even that didn't take into account the individual needs of everyone, right? I think that was like a blanket decision. So even to that extent, it's like, okay, wait a second, and there's always that time. So sometimes there's the influx of the fear and the fear response. At some point, that response will die out because it cannot be sustained. So then we'll see ourselves kind of going into this no matter at what level, we'll go into a very quiet, very introverted place, a very kind of a pulling back, getting more sleep, nourishing ourselves, right? Because we cannot keep going in that heightened state.
Right.
And at that point, that's where we can, if we haven't been able to capture ourselves yet, that is a great place to start capturing ourselves in self-leading at that point.
And it's really bringing into my awareness this whole like slowing down to speed up, which I know absolutely can have an impact on maximizing someone's actual potential.
Yeah. Yeah, and there is that time, right, where it's if we're in flow, there's always a time where we slow down and then move fast, or move fast and then slow down. Like that is a natural way that flow works.
Yeah.
It's how we find balance, right? And so or like overall balance. So when we do this slow down, it's natural. It's like an Ayurvedic principle, right? We cannot go fat. Everything will slow us down, whether it's our weight gain or our, like, you know what I mean? Like there will be a slowing that happens. And so when that slow comes, it's a great time to then pause, because it can be difficult to pause in the fast moving, right?
Yeah.
However, if you're mentally strong enough to pause, then it is better to pause then, because then you can sustain a more even flow rather than a up and then down. Like you'll be more, it won't be so
Dramatic or
dramatic.
intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say to a person who they know that their pattern is to immediately launch into anxiety or yes, fear, or maybe even anger or blame, and and they start to feel consumed by all that, but they'd like to switch their response to what's happening around them because there's an even greater awareness of, oh wow, I can't actually control, the people that I maybe feel inclined to blame or want to control or any of that stuff. But how do I switch this? If I've had a lifetime pattern of responding this one way and now I want to start to slow down, how can they start to slow that down so they can be more effective in the direction they'd like to go?
So I say, like, first you have to meet yourself where you're at. And I would even put a timer on that, right? So it's like, okay, I want to be sad right now. I want to, be full on anxiety, or I want to be straight on angry. I literally would recommend setting a timer. Give yourself whatever it is, 4 minutes, 1 minute, like try to move yourself down in the minutes, but like start where you need to, right? And it's like, that's my time to just let it all out. And if we can, try to make that something that's happening with yourself and not others, because that energy that needs to come out, it's not great when it combines with other people's energy that needs to come out, because it just starts to spiral out of control, and they build on each other, right? So if we can take that to, I had a lot of people on my social media lists that with recent, events happening, they felt like they needed to just go into the bathroom and cry, right? It's like, cool. Go into the bathroom and cry. Set a timer. Let yourself cry. Set another timer that's like, okay, now I'm picking myself out of it, right? Like I'm
Right.
like, okay, so now whatever the intense emotion was, I'm going to back myself out of it for a minute, right? And then the next minute, I'm going to start to look at whatever it is, the gratitude, or what is going right. Because oftentimes the way our brain reacts is, it's when we're in a reaction state, it looks for all the proof of what's not going right. And so there has to be a moment where we let that happen, and then we move to what else is going right. What can I focus my brain on? And when we are able to make that switch, then we actually will feel more empowered, and then more able to follow the steps and goals that we had set out for ourselves, or whether those have changed because of crisis, right?
Right.
We'll be able to show up and be present with them.
What I'm hearing is a lot of being just what you just said, being present with, if this is my go-to response to feel angry, cry, whatever it may be, to allow myself to be present with that and say, okay, this is my response. But then, like you said, consciously say, okay, I'm gonna choose to, set a timer for 1 minute or however long, and make the next conscious decision. And so the focus is really, this is what I'm doing now, and this is what I choose to do next. And that
Yes.
absolutely sounds very empowering. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So now let's bring up this, yes, the awareness of, so I'm having my response. This is how I respond to all the change and chaos and uncertainty around me. And oh no, now there's this other being who's having their personal experience of change and chaos and uncertainty. And what if our responses are completely opposite and different? And how do I deal with that? Or what do I do with that? Especially if it's a person I can't really distance myself from in some capacity. What are your thoughts about how to navigate something like that?
I think it's so for me, we've gotten to a place where it's not okay to unload on each other, right? And I'll be very vocal. So, for instance, my husband came home and he was having, you can tell he's going through a big change right now, and he likes to fight, right? Like that's his go-to response. So he's
Okay.
like, I'm a part of me is, dying. Everyone else is dying too. Like, like that's his mentality. And I'm like, like I like listening to what's going on, and you're screaming at me. Like you're literally like that's what how you're doing this right now. So like being aware of that, right, is like we with our loved ones or our close, people to us, we want to be there for them, and we do want to listen, and we want that for ourselves as well. But it's not okay to spit up on them, right? Like it's not okay to take that a level further. And I think that if everyone has a boundary and is able to say, so just so we're clear, I like hearing this, and I don't like that you're yelling at me. You're not, I know you're not conscious, like you're not angry at me, but that's how you're like that's how you're speaking to me right now. But like going like that's very an evolved home skill, right? That's what everybody's kind of, agreed to be in that place. So like at the very rudimental, it's if we can separate ourselves from someone else's reaction, right? I mean, this is where we even find out like, ooh, it's kind of toxic when I bring this to somebody else. Like,
Right.
I don't like it when it's coming to me, and it's toxic when I do it to other people. And so just even having that awareness, um, and then if we can, separating ourselves in terms of like, oh, their reaction is not about me,
So key. Yes.
right?
What
Yeah.
what I really noticed is earlier is when you said, "I hear you," and it's really that emphasizing of and so let's say it's a husband and a wife or a brother and sister or best friends. I can see someone saying, "I love you," and it's going to be beneficial for me to not hear some of this right now, or beneficial for me to take some time out for myself because I'm having a different experience. And I can respect and honor that you're having a response that's different than mine. And just like that emphasis of the word and, it's
Mhm.
okay for one person to be where they are and the other person to be where they are. And and how can it help uplift and support and enhance the existing relationship versus necessarily take away or tear down what's already been built.
Yeah, and I think that bringing that awareness is, I love that you picked up on the "and" thing, because when we say "but," we're really cutting somebody off. When we say "and," we're like, these two things are coexisting, and can we do something about them, right? And that gives opportunity, and it gives us opportunity to grow as a family unit or a friend unit, in terms of having real conversations and having and being able to navigate emotions together, right? It's like, so with some of friends, sometimes we may be like, ooh, I can tell you are triggered like right now, and I do not have the headspace to be there for you in this triggered moment. Um, it would be great if you could, you know, have the hour to scream or have the 5 minutes to scream, set the timer, right? Scream it out, write it out on a piece of paper and throw it out, like whatever you need to do, whatever, in order to like let that triggered piece of you come out. Um, and then maybe we'll pick up later, right, when we can have a logical conversation about this, because when we're in, the thing about change or uncertainty, or even the extreme of being in crisis, is that we are operating in a very emotional part of our brain, and we do not have logical thinking, you know, like we're not unable to reach logical thinking strategies well. And so if we continue to stay in that emotional reaction, what's coming from it isn't the best of anyone involved, right?
Mm,
Like the strategies, it's not our best selves showing up. And so if we can do things to help ourselves in that emotional place, which is like take a time out, let the emotion express to the point where you feel complete. Right? Like that there's a moment where even I'll get this signal where it'll be like, that's enough. Don't talk about this anymore. Right? Because you're now perpetrating like something much bigger
right.
energetically. So like how do we let it out to what is complete, because we don't need to bring it to every doorstep. We need to let it out, and that's a thing. And then what can we do to soothe ourselves is the next question. So how can we soothe ourselves? And then as we're being soothed, we then start to gain clarity. There's no action in a reaction, right? Like there's
Right.
nothing that we can do at that point. There's no action that we can take, because it won't be our most it won't be actions for our best self. It will be
Right.
actions from this emotional place. So yeah, I think that's it's really like allowing it only for a limited amount of time, and then what can I do to self-soothe? These are the two things.
Love it. The other thing that's coming through is that as we're in this space, you know, anybody who's currently learning how to navigate themselves and develop their own self leadership amidst any sort of crisis or chaos happening around them, and that can be anything from, you know, a global crisis to just simply a family crisis, right? Or a personal crisis. Maybe something shifted with your job that you didn't expect, and now it's incredibly unsettling. That when anybody's in the middle of experiencing something like that, and to some effect in their own bubble, experiencing all this stuff happening, it's really bringing to mind that phrase, or it might be a quote, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but the one about, you know, one thing ends so another thing can be rebuilt or be recreated. And so it's really bringing in this sense of, you know, building up that muscle, that self-leadership muscle, and gaining strength and a stronger foundation within that, you know, whether, you know, within the individual, but also within connections with other people, so that whatever we once experienced before can be even healthier and stronger than, you know, however awesome it may have been prior to the chaos.
I think you're touching on something here, because I think it's that end piece, right? So when we it's like a brick wall that says the end, and we are very literal, right? So
Yes.
like it feels like it's the end. Um and that feels very heavy.
Yeah.
And if we, you know, if instead of that brick wall with the end sign on it, it was like a beautiful meadow that said all possibilities, right? Like
I love
we'd
it.
be like, cool. We'd like swing our arms and jump and whistle and all the stuff, right? Like, but we often see the brick wall with the end on it. And in, you know, when we're dealing with change and uncertainty, there's always something ending. When we're dealing with a chaos, like you're saying, family or global, it doesn't matter, you know, and or even chaos for us, right? Like something very, very traumatic. Um, we're always seeing the end part, and that's where we focus, and that's where all our emotional energy goes to. Um, and that's okay to a certain extent. And then we do have to take that self leadership. We do have to take that moment to say, okay, this is ending, but I am not ended,
Yes.
right? Like I have not ended. So therefore, there must be more. Like it's a
Being
logical, yeah,
being able to see that bigger picture and knowing
yeah,
that there's something else, and that in the awareness of it, the individual is actually helping to also create that next thing.
yes, yeah.
Love it. Uh, Jessica, we are nearing the end of today's Inspired by Crisis interview, and it's been so awesome having this conversation with you today. Are there any final words you'd like to share with today's audience?
I think it's really important to do the self-soothing. So when change, uncertainty, chaos, trauma happens, there's a lot to absorb and there's a lot to digest. So what can you do to simplify things for yourself? Can you simplify your foods? Can you simplify what you're drinking? Can you simplify what you're consuming, right? Like for me, my go-to is like some sort of Christmassy love movie, right? Like I'm not going to watch an intense drama. I don't need, right? Like I don't need more to digest. I
Yeah.
need simplicity and joy and laughter. So how can we do that? How can we do that in our relationships? How can we make space and maybe finding these ways to simplify and allow for digestion, because the faster we can digest an experience, the easier it is to get to the logical part, to see the possibility, to step forward and move in a direction that makes sense, right? And
Yeah.
so if I can pass that on, it's how do we simplify? How do we simplify to make room for digestion?
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today with us, Jessica. I really appreciate it.
Good, thank you. I always love having these conversations with you. So thanks.
Absolutely. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. We will see you on the next Alter Power Session special video series inspired by crisis. Bye everybody.
Bye.